Okay, welcome colleagues to the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats, Sub-Working Group 1.2. This is the July session. I am Brian Morales, coming to you from Chicago, Illinois, joined by the INL team. And I have a few administrative announcements to get us started. We had a series of meetings and initiatives over the past week, so let's take stock of what's been happening over the past weeks. Next slide, please. Between the days of the 24th to the 28th of June, many of our colleagues around the world came together in Thessaloniki, Greece, in celebration of the annual workshops of ISUP. ISUP is the International Society of Substance Use Professionals. We had over 1,000 participants with more than 30 trainings, events, and other activities, including some that related to the coalition, which I'll discuss in a moment. That was one big event. Then on the 26th of June, we also celebrated World Drug Day, where we also had UNODC launch the World Drug Report. I encourage you all to go to UNODC's website to review the latest data that has come out, and there's some extended sort of write-ups on synthetic drugs in that report as well. Also on the 7th of June, we celebrated the one-year anniversary of the ministerial meeting that launched the Global Coalition. And we had some social media events that came around that. Now, if we go to the next slide, I also want to share that as part of the Global Coalition, we were very fortunate on June 24th to 25th to be able to convene 30 out of the 40 co-chairs of the Global Coalition in person to come together and review the progress that has been made and where do we go from here. If we go to the next slide, the co-chairs discussed progress and actions that countries have taken, the next steps for the coalition. We came up with some ideas for future action. One thing that we've realized and discussed is that there is great demand for initiatives from many countries. We have received a lot of requests, and not too late to request interest to the international organizations directly. We have we've had a discussion on the importance of convening global donors, not just governments, but also large foundations. And so we are discussing now either in September or October to try to have a large donors conference in Vienna with representatives from capitals to discuss how best to, what we are all supporting and how best to resource expanded support for global counter-narcotics activities. So that is one of the areas that we discussed. The second was an initiative for enhanced controls of chemicals and precursors used to produce synthetic illicit drugs. We just had that discussion in the previous session. We also talked about enhancing forensic drug testing, as well as improved data collection and sharing, and stronger drug prevention measures as well. If we go to the next page, one of the big launches in support of the Global Coalition, one of the major recommendations of the Coalition, Sub-Working Group 3.2, we launched the Global Recovery Network. This is an alliance that includes people that are recovery allies and recovery peers. And the idea is to help define the field of recovery, to help build and develop local recovery networks. This is a vital piece that is missing in so many countries around the world. And so through the strength of support and connection, we are hoping that we can help grow the recovery movement around the world. Next slide. The other network that was launched is the Global Women's Network. That is for providers of women's treatment services and women's recovery services to be able to share best practices, science, research, receive mentoring and support. And so we encourage and invite all of you as well to join both of these networks. There are websites and there are also QR codes that you can scan with forms for you and others in your countries to join these networks. Next slide, please. And we are also very excited by the transformation of EMCDDA on July 1st to the new European Union Drugs Agency, EUDA. will have an expanded mandate, and we're very excited to partner and collaborate and learn about the international cooperation of EUDA in the years to come. Next slide. I want to remind everybody that it is not too late to continue to communicate to us what your commitments and actions will be for the coalition. And that can be adopting a new practice, policy, strategy, regulation, or law. It can be launching a new engagement or collaboration with the private sector. It could be providing financial or in-kind assistance. You can host a meeting at the regional or global level. You can go to the website and review the initiatives, 120 initiatives, and you can write to the international organization partners that are whose contact information is on those initiatives and express interest. Or you can report to us any other act to strengthen your country's response to synthetic drugs. Next slide. If you send us a report, we encourage you to make it no longer than 2 pages in a format of Microsoft Word or email. And the deadline was the 3rd of June, but we will continue to receive and welcome submissions to the email address that you see there, syntheticscoalition@state.gov. Next slide, please. And I will say that this month we are continuing to discuss implementation of different initiatives and programs, any new developments in the field that we are facing, coalition action planning for next steps, while in August we will be having our final sub-working group sessions and discussing monitoring and evaluation, sustainability, and we would like you all to also come prepared. If you have shared reports with us, or if you just want to give a verbal report of what your country commits to carrying forward in year number 2, we welcome and encourage you to do so. Then in September, we will have working group sessions where sub-working group co-chairs will present to working group co-chairs, sharing reflections and providing final reports over the past year. And so this will be very much a way to close out, to finish all of our monthly meetings in the last session. So with that, I like to thank you all for your dedication over all of these months. And we did prepare a video of the co-chairs meeting that took place in Greece. I am now going to ask our moderator, Henki, to please play that video. Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Global Coalition meeting. It's incredible to be here in person. With the pandemic, we all started using screens more and more, and now it's not unusual to have a whole year go by without seeing people in person. But it feels a little bit like Hollywood when you start to see people that you've been seeing on the screen now come to life, and now we're all here in one room. It's quite special. Thank you so much for making the journey.
I can't tell you what a great honor it is for me to be in this room with so many experts from so many different parts of your governments. I am happy to have the opportunity to thank you in person for everything that you have been doing over the past year.
I believe it is important that participant countries reflect on and communicate what their own objectives are as part of the Global Coalition and what they want to achieve over the next 12 months.
I urge us to invest in the hard work of building and supporting capacity in less developed parts of the world. This will require time, building relationships, face-to-face visits, and follow-up meetings.
Every country has challenges, they're just different ones. With synthetic drugs, there are a lot of lessons we can learn from other countries because of their experiences. And no one country can solve this alone. It is a challenge that faces all of us, and whether it's fentanyl or some other drug, in addition to plant-based drugs, we all share the same threat and we have to work together. So our goal for the launch of the coalition last July, which would be 1 year and a week, was to get 50 countries together. We ended up getting 80 countries and 11 international organizations. And now there are 156 countries and 15 different international organizations. And that is because of you all. President Biden has now requested $24 billion just for domestic treatment programs at home. We now have a medical doctor who's the head of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. And all of this really is because of the things that you have done.
To keep the momentum going, to make sure that this attention to the change.
The structure created strike a balance between treatment and prevention.
If you put all these intelligence minds together, you can't go wrong here.
What we want to achieve is that element of networking, knowledge, sharing and learning. But when we come together, there's a magic. There's an energy that happens when people are together in the same room.
The Global Women's Network is I see as an important part of this overall conference because it gives providers from prevention to treatment to recovery that are working with women a place to call home, a place to find their face, their voice, their like-minded spirits within this larger conference.
Recovery is part of the whole continuum of care, and that's why it's a very important component in this conference.
So one thing that I think the coalition needs to do is start looking at some of these issues that are challenging us outside the box.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Very nice to see everyone from the co-chairs there and the international organizations. I don't see our co-chairs online for 1.2 today, so I will, as I'm scrolling here and looking, I would think we'll just get started on our end, and if they're able to join us, we will turn it over to them. But we have a few presentations that we've lined up for today and discussion. I'm going to ask Sarah to take over and introduce the presentations for today. Thank you.
Sure thing. We first have a presentation on increasing New Zealand communities' resilience to the harm of organized crime from the New Zealand Police, Ian Futcher. I apologize if I mispronounced.
No, that was as good a pronunciation as anyone ever does. So thank you all very much for the opportunity to come and present. I'm just going to quickly share my screen, so bear with me as I fumble through this. Right. Everyone, I'm assuming everyone can see that?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So thank you again for the opportunity to come and present. I just wanted to talk today around increasing community resilience to the harms of organized crime. So the New Zealand approach to transnational and domestic organized crime takes a broad one, reflecting the broad nature of the crime types and methodologies which are impacting New Zealand. Addressing all types of organized crime in New Zealand means tackling both supply
Ian,
and
I
demand.
apologize to interrupt you. Would you mind speaking a little bit slower for our interpreters?
Of
Thank you.
course, not a problem. To build resilience, this means targeting those creating the most harm in our communities and building resilience of our communities and families to deal with that organized crime. So in 2019, the New Zealand government introduced 2 cross-agency work programs to address the supply and demand of organized crime in our communities. The transnational organized crime strategy is aimed at target hardening New Zealand, and it focuses on strengthening our borders and enabling operational agencies to reduce the supply of illicit commodities into New Zealand. Resilience to organized crime in communities, and herefore known as ROC, focuses on reducing the demand in our communities, currently focused on methamphetamine. This end-to-end response acknowledges that you have to address supply and demand at the same time. For example, focusing on stopping drugs coming into New Zealand won't have any impact unless we also support our communities to reduce the use of methamphetamine and therefore reduce the demand which fuels supply. These 2 work programs are implemented by a dedicated team who work on behalf of 34 different New Zealand government agencies represented across this response. So it's as I said before, it's equally important that we focus on the demand aspect as well as supply, even if we make it increasingly hard for transnational organizations to bring drugs into the country. The price that users are willing to pay in New Zealand will continue to drive supply. Factors that contribute to the demand picture are incredibly varied, and police do not have the right levers for us to tackle this alone, but then neither does any agency. In New Zealand communities, the factors that drive people to join organized crime groups are reinforced by the multiple harms of criminal activity impacting individuals, families, and communities. Harms include mental health, addiction, violence, firearms, and other drivers. So ROC recognizes that addressing the well-being harms and drivers of organized crime is a social issue as well, requiring a coordinated response, combining community development, prevention, and law enforcement. It focuses on how we respond to the demand through enforcement action and having wraparound support available. Through the development of these support networks, we are making it easier for frontline staff by removing people from the justice pipeline and by having partner agencies take responsibility for the social aspect, allowing police to focus on their core roles. We are in the early stages of evaluation of the programs that ROC is supporting. However, early evaluations have shown between a 1 in 3 and a 1 in 6 social return on investment. So for every dollar spent, we get between $3 and $6 response, which is a very good return on investment. When ROC was first designed, it was the result of community consultation, listening to our frontline experience, and reviewing the impact of previous operations, such as ones that were led by Greg Williams, who's on here today, and the National Organized Crime Group in New Zealand Police, and working with our partner agency. Many of the lessons that have gone into the development of ROC come from frontline experience and national organized crime operations. So based on this exploration of community needs and evidence of where the best impact could be gained from intervention, it was determined that 3 main cohorts should be focused on. Those are youth on the pathway into the justice pipeline, those who are impacted by methamphetamine and its associated harms, and vulnerable families at risk from engaging in or being victims of organized crime. Through analysis of drug and gang harm and deprivation data that was provided to us by the New Zealand Gang Harm Insight Center and the National Drug Intelligence Bureau, we have landed on 4 current locations. We have landed on our current locations, which include 4 original, which are Counties Manukau, Bay of Plenty, Eastern District, and Southern District, which are on the map in front of you, and then expansion sites, which are in Northland, Hororua, and West Coast. The approach in each region is informed by the overall ROC program, but it is actually driven by regional priorities. Regional decision makers alongside communities identify regional aspirations and how they want to approach the issues within their community. These are codified into regional plans that allow the region to be targeted in using their funding to address regional and community priorities. Each location has funding allocated to it based on the type of intervention and the harm levels present within the community. Regional decision makers create local funding panels that prioritize funding to go towards bespoke community initiatives that address those regional aspirations. The implementation of the ROC program is supported by a dedicated team of 7 within New Zealand Police, and most of those FTE work on the ground in regions to support the implementation on behalf of police and our partner agencies. So ROC is a tripart plan. So we focus, as we've talked about, the supply and demand aspect. So supply is through law enforcement and investigations. We target organized crime, illicit drug supply, and those who create the most harm in our communities. This is the pillar that police take the lead on. In terms of demand development, we develop community capability and capacity to provide wraparound social intervention and this is driven by the social and health sectors. And then in terms of resilience, this is around strengthening community well-being and building resilience to the conditions that allow organized crime to operate. And this is the result of tackling supply issues while also reducing demand. And it's important because no one agency has all the levers to work across all of these areas. So it's very important that everyone sticks to their lane and actually focuses on the area that they can get the best bang for buck. So Within the ROC program, we have 12 partner agencies, and they all fit within different aspects and contribute in different ways. From a supply and enforcement aspect, that is 1/3 of the ROC approach. Only police really has the levers and the ability to lead here alongside the New Zealand Ministry of Justice that does legislation and policy development. Other members of the justice sector support the supply side of things, such as justice with changing legislation. But then most of their agencies are focused on the demand and resilient aspects, such as the New Zealand Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, and they provide employment support as well as regional development, or New Zealand's At-Risk Youth Ministry, which is Oranga Tamariki, and they work with at-risk youth. The main focus of the National ROC program, besides providing governance and a certain amount of oversight, is to enable regions to be able to achieve their aspirations and goals. And this ties into the ROC view of a nationally enabled, regionally delivered, and community-driven response to harm from organized crime. At a regional level, agency involvement has been one of the strengths of the program, with regional representatives collaborating and driving the work. This ensures that responses are designed in a way that benefits communities and brings the right agency or NGO to the table to take ownership of their land. I'm now going to actually give two brief examples of the ROC approach. And the first one is called Operation Pakari, which is based down in the southern part of New Zealand's Southland. And that focused on the Mongrel Mob, which is the largest New Zealand adult gang with the largest scope. So Operation Pakari was a police operation focused on harm driven by organized crime, particularly the Mongrel Mob, within Southland communities. This operation terminated in June 2023, and it used the ROC strategic framework. A key part of the operation included prevention and reassurance activities with ongoing support from ROC and its network of relationships. This work includes a focus on scoping opportunities for longer-term enhancement of health and social services in the area. When the operation was executed, obviously armed offenders squad was the first people through the door. The next people through the door after the warrants had been served were our family liaison officers, who were able to work with the family to ascertain their needs and refer them on to partner agencies and NGOs. In the lead up to the termination, police worked with partner agencies so they were aware of the situation, were able to start surging capacity to deal with the needs in the community. Across the Southland region, there were 3 distinct Mongrel Mob chapters with 61 patched members and 25 prospects. And this small group of people were responsible for most of the serious and fatal violence in Southland, especially around methamphetamine supply, serious assaults, and drive-by shootings. So 40 warrants were issued, and at least 20 people have been arrested, with 85 charges filed. And there were also warrants and arrests across the North Island, as it was a coordinated operation. Following the arrest, there was a reduction in the overall reports from Operation Pakari members' targets, demonstrating a reduction in the activities they're engaged in, and methamphetamine reporting within the Southland area decreased quite significantly. However, the area where ROC was actually focused on was alongside that enforcement action. So one of the actual areas that we gained a huge amount of insight in was that there were 12 families impacted by this operation, with 47 children impacted, with 14 of them under 5 years old. And we were unaware, for the most part, of the under 5-year-olds before the operation. So this was actually an area that was quite startling, because we thought that we had a relatively good understanding of the community, but the fact that there was actually so many under 5-year-olds that we simply, no agencies were even aware of. So police, using the ROC strategic framework, were able to connect people impacted with the right services and focus on the investigation aspect. We actually used the Tipuni Kokiri, which is the New Zealand Māori Development Agency, Oranga Tamariki, which is our youth aid and support agency, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Development, and early childhood education NGOs, so that we were able to bring in wraparound social support services to support the impacted family and household. And these included access to essential services, connection to community support, free health clinic for whānau impacted by the operation, and social service navigators commenced at a local local marae, a Māori meeting house, leading to engagement and support for the women and children in the wider area. As for one individual, I thought I'd actually go down as the individual impact of the operation. So she was living in a wooded villa in the town with her partner. This is the middle of June in one of the coldest parts of New Zealand. They had a brand new newborn baby. She had been burning towels for heat in Southland in June. There was no food in the house except for dog food in the fridge. So when police came in, they took her partner away as it was a target of the operation. However, she was also referred to support services by police and accepted help from the navigators. She was able to access funding for a Healthy Homes grant through one of our partner agencies, leading to insulation being installed and improvements to the kitchen and bathroom at her address. She had no driver's license and was forbidden to drive. A referral was completed to a local driving agency. She has now been able to attain her learner driver license, and she was supported to obtain a current warrant of fitness for her car and registration. She also attended a workshop run by the local NGO for youth development on how do you fit a car seat within her car. Her house is now on the market, and she intends to move far away from the actual community. She's also working at a local school and engaging with the family court, and recently attended a family care and protection family group conference and made positive contributions in relation to the ongoing care of her children. Obviously, this sort of story was similar across all the different aspects of Operation Pakari and a lot of the families that were impacted. The second example that I'm going to talk about is it's a different approach. So if it was a police-focused one in the first example, this is more of a health-based focused one. This is in a place called Murupara, which is about 2/3 of the way up the North Island of New Zealand. 1 in 2 adults in Murupara are users of methamphetamine, and with limited wastewater analysis available, but it shows that in Murupara, they had an average per capita consumption of 2,285 milligrams per day per 1,000 people. This is compared to the national average of 500 milligrams per day per 1,000 people. So it has been identified as a prime location for a methamphetamine harm reduction program that incorporated a Maori approach due to the high Maori population, which was in excess of 80%. So health agencies, including the New Zealand Ministry of Health, provided funding to support the development of a targeted service in 2022 to address methamphetamine use and addiction for users. So instead of it being this police-led, Ministry of Health actually took the lead on this, with partner agencies supporting the program at a local level. This resulted in a program called Te Ahi Māori, and it's a methamphetamine harm reduction program that's modeled after one that's actually happened before in New Zealand called Te Aroranga, and it's based around a no wrong door policy. So it doesn't matter how you are referred to the program. If you are referred to it, it doesn't matter where you came from. From a police perspective, we're able to refer people to this program, which is a first in this area, because despite the high methamphetamine use, there was no access to services in the Bay of Plenty area where Murupara is. So police now actually refer at a rounded rate of around 6 referrals a week, and this is actually in a town of 2,000 people. This has improved trust and confidence in police because we're able to do an alternative resolution or an alternative pathway rather than pushing people straight into the justice pipeline. And frontline officers have stressed the impact that the service is having on the community and the ease with which we can engage and get people into the service. It's estimated that there's around 28 new people supported a month that are now referred to this program. The program has also actually introduced 2 new youth programs to intervene at earlier stages to deter youth from methamphetamine addiction. We're also supporting getting those in the program into education and employment pathways, with the New Zealand Ministry of Social Development earmarking funding to support the education and employment pathway. And a lot of this has come about because of ROC's involvement in Te Ahi Māori, which brought in education, Ministry of Social Development, our Regional Public Service Commissioner, and police. Again, we'll use actually more of an individual view. So as this is actually sort of talking about what I just talked about. So within Murupara, we have an area of high gang tension, violence, and organized crime with exceptionally high meth use. 1 in 2 adults using methamphetamine. And we're now able to refer people to this program, which has significantly increased our ability to engage with the community rather than sending people down the justice pipeline. At an individual level, there was a woman who's allowed us to actually use her story. So Kay has been battling addiction for 23 years. She was introduced to methamphetamine use through her family at high school age, hanging out with gang members all the time. This has impacted her children and her grandchildren, damaged her relationships, damaged her health, her well-being, her home because of her engagement in the gangs within the gang networks. Her home was firebombed and she lost her family home. This led her into shame, depression, paranoia. One of her daughters, my apologies, I'm having actually a mind blank. One of her sisters worked for the Tiahi Maori program and engaged with her and actually brought her into the fold. And so Kay, for the last 19 months, has been working with the Tiahi Maori program. She has been meth-free over that time period. And the 24/7 support that is available through the navigators has been the thing that has actually really worked for her. That and the fact that the Tiahi Maori program focuses on what in New Zealand it's called Te Ao Māori, which is the Maori universe and the Maori way of doing things. So it allows her to connect back to her culture. So it's not just focusing on it from a clinical side, it's also using the social side and using that Maori culture as an anchor back to well-being. So through the program, she's accessed help. She's reconnected with her family, reignited her passion for life, and she is now actually working with an NGO that works in a very similar area so that she can help people who are very similar to where she was. And what this really draws on is the need in these sort of programs is listening to people with lived experience. It's very hard to be able to engage with vulnerable communities such as gangs and methamphetamine users if you've never gone through that themselves. So being able to use those with lived experience as navigators and ways of engaging with the wider community has been quite central to the ROC approach. So I realize that I have actually been talking for a bit now. So I thought I might actually if anybody has any questions or thoughts, I'd be happy to answer them.
You are great. Thank you so much, Ian, so much for that presentation. That was wonderful. And actually, we are going to wait till the end after the next presentation to open up for Q&A. But beforehand, Anthony, I might want to open it up to you if you'd like to say any opening remarks. Anthony, unfortunately, yeah, Anthony, up to you.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And my sincerest apologies for not turning up in time. It appears I was defeated by technology and my calendar did not receive the meeting invite. And my life is dictated by what's in my calendar each day. So Sarah got in contact and I am here. So grateful for the opportunity to be involved in the working group again. And I was just extremely fortunate to be able to travel to Thessaloniki, Greece, and meet with the other co-chairs of the sub-working groups, and we really had a great opportunity to discuss the progress of the coalition over the last 12 months, and we really had some great conversations about how the coalition can deliver some real tangible outcomes over the next 12 months, both in the manufacturing and trafficking sub-working groups. And I know that our leader, Greg Williams from New Zealand Police, has sent out an email to some of the co-chairs yesterday, which outlines some of our ideas moving forward. So look, I look forward to the next presentation, and I'll hold my questions till the end. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Sarah.
Absolutely. And Anthony, I apologize if I put you on the spot. And thank you so much. And thank you also to Ian for that wonderful presentation. We are actually going to turn it next to, and I apologize, I know I'm going to butcher it in advance, Alawi Afilapoi. and Patrick from the Senior Blockchain Intelligence Analyst from TRM Lands. And please introduce yourself so we all know how to pronounce your names correctly. I apologize.